In the silence of a dust-swept village where life was measured not by dreams, but by how much a woman could bear, a young girl named Eliza sat by the window of her small wooden home, staring out into a world that had already marked her as broken. She was only 22, but her parents had already branded her a curse because her womb had failed to give them what they valued most: children. The whispers of neighbors had become knives. Every glance carried the weight of shame her parents did not want to carry. And then one night, beneath the muted glow of a cracked lantern, her parents made the choice that would forever change her fate. They sold her. Not for love, not for her dreams, but as though she were a possession too heavy to bear, a shadow too dark to hold. The pain in her chest that night was unlike anything she had ever known, as if the world itself had turned its back on her. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and that no one deserves to be thrown away because of what they cannot give, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Moonlight Stories. Your support keeps these life-changing stories alive. Eliza's new life began in a wagon that carried her far from the only home she had ever known. Her parents did not even say goodbye. She watched the horizon stretch endlessly as tears blurred her sight, her heart feeling more like a hollow cavern than anything that could beat with hope again. She had been sold to work on land that did not belong to her, to people who did not know her name, to a world where she was nothing more than a burden exchanged for coin. But fate has a strange way of writing stories in ink unseen. And as the wagon jolted across the open plains, she did not know that her shattered soul was being carried not toward more chains, but toward the arms of someone who would see the pieces and gather them tenderly. On the edge of that same wide plain, a cowboy named Daniel lived with 5 children who filled his small ranch with both laughter and silence. Daniel was no stranger to heartbreak. His wife, the love of his youth, had died 3 winters ago, leaving him to shoulder the weight of fatherhood alone. His children, ranging from a wild-eyed toddler to a quiet teenage daughter, had lost their mother but gained a father who worked himself raw just to keep them clothed and fed. The house was warm with memories but cold with longing, and though Daniel's hands were calloused from years of hard labor, his heart was soft, aching for someone who could bring light back into his children's lives. He had never expected that the woman the world had thrown away would become that light. When Eliza arrived at the ranch, she was timid, her eyes downcast, her voice barely above a whisper. She carried the weight of rejection like a second skin, expecting to be treated as nothing more than a servant. But Daniel was not like the others. He did not look at her with judgment or pity. He simply saw a weary soul who needed a place to rest. He let her eat at the same table as his children, a gesture so simple yet so foreign to her that she wept silently into her bread that first night. The children, cautious at first, began to watch her with curious eyes. They noticed the way she quietly swept the floors, the way she hummed songs while mending torn clothes, the way she tucked loose strands of hair behind her ear when she thought no one was watching. Slowly, they began to draw near. But life was not without its trials. The whispers followed her even here. People in the nearby town would sneer when they saw her with Daniel and his children, muttering that a barren woman had no place in a home filled with little ones. Each word was like salt on a wound that had never healed, and Eliza found herself pulling away, believing that perhaps she did not deserve the fragile happiness beginning to grow inside her. There were nights when she sat outside on the porch, staring at the stars, wondering if she was meant to spend her life as a ghost, present but unseen. It was during one of those nights that Daniel, without asking, sat beside her. He spoke not in grand promises but in the quiet, steady way of a man who had endured storms. He told her that children did not need perfection. They needed love. That family was not always made by blood but by choice, by the hands willing to hold when the world let go. For the first time, Eliza allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, she could belong. Seasons passed, and Eliza's presence began to weave itself into the fabric of the ranch. She taught the children stories she remembered from her childhood, stories of courage and kindness. She planted flowers by the windows, their colors spilling joy into a house once draped in grief. She stitched clothes with gentle care, cooked meals with quiet devotion, and most importantly, she began to laugh again, an unfamiliar sound that startled her at first but soon became the heartbeat of the home. Daniel watched it all with a deep, quiet gratitude, his admiration for her growing not from grand gestures, but from the countless small ways she gave herself to the life they were building. He had not chosen her for what she could give him, but for what she already was, a woman of strength, resilience, and a heart that knew how to love even when the world had given her every reason to stop. And then came the day when the children, one by one, began to call her Mama. It was not forced, nor asked of them. It rose naturally from the bond she had nurtured. When she heard it for the first time, Eliza fell to her knees, tears streaming down her face as she held them close. The word that had once been a curse in her life had now become the most precious gift, not because of what she had lost, but because of what she had found. Daniel stood behind them, his eyes heavy with tears he did not try to hide, for he knew that his children had gained not just a caretaker, but a mother who had chosen them with every fiber of her soul. But the story did not end there. The same parents who had cast her away heard rumors of her new life and came to the ranch, seeking to reclaim her, not out of love, but greed. They demanded she return, claiming she belonged to them. The confrontation was bitter, the pain of betrayal reopening wounds she thought had healed. But this time Eliza did not stand alone. Daniel stood by her side, his children gathered around, their small voices fierce with love. And for the first time in her life, Eliza raised her head high, looked into the eyes of those who had discarded her, and chose to stay where her heart had finally found a home. Her parents left with nothing, and Eliza remained with everything she had ever longed for. A family, a purpose, and a love that saw her not for what she could give, but for who she was. By the end of that summer, the ranch was alive not only with the sounds of cattle and horses, but with laughter, music, and a love that could not be broken by whispers or greed. Eliza, once sold as barren and worthless, had become the heart of a home, the mother of 5 children who adored her, and the partner of a man who chose her not out of desperation, but out of recognition of the rare and quiet beauty within her. Her story was no longer one of loss, but of redemption, proving that even in the harshest of deserts, flowers can bloom if given the chance. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Moonlight Stories. Your support helps us spread more stories of kindness, love, and second chances to the world. Special request: share your thoughts in the comments below. What part of Eliza's journey moved you the most? Your words mean more than you know.